Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Kiorkof, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're talking about my bold predictions for the 2023 fantasy football season. Now, over the course of today's episode, I'm going to be going over a bunch of different categories. Some such as which running back at this current moment in time, who has an ADP, average draft position, outside of the top 24, has the highest likelihood of finishing as an RB1 at the end of 2023. Or perhaps which wide receiver is going to finish with the most receiving yards and is not named Justin Jefferson into the 2023 season. Or perhaps which overall prospect is the biggest sleeper based on where they're being selected and the potential outcome of what I expect to see in 2023. All of that, different categories we're going to go over. But as you guys know, as we do this annually, there are some categories that I'm going to get correct, and there are going to be a lot that I get incorrect. I mean, the unpredictable nature of fantasy football and the NFL makes this extremely difficult. So what I want you to go ahead and do, as I go ahead and reveal every single category, predict alongside me, comment down below, and let me know what you guys think as to what your bold predictions are for the 2023 season. While you're down there, if you have not yet already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Again, we're making daily fantasy football content for the entirety of the 2023 season. Tomorrow begins with our week 1 running back rankings, into Tuesday with wide receivers, Wednesday with both tight end and quarterback rankings. Thursday we'll have a live stream before the fantastic kickoff of the 2023 year between the Kansas City Chiefs and, of course, the Detroit Lions. Friday, we'll have more content. Saturday, live stream. Sunday morning, live stream at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Kickoff with Kiorkof, as we'll be answering all questions in regards to setting your lineups going into this upcoming season. So be sure to subscribe if you have not yet already, because we're trying to help you win a fantasy football championship. Okay, so let's talk about some bold predictions going into this upcoming year. Let's begin with the first category. Which player not named Christian McCaffrey or Austin Eckler, or even a player who has not been able to finish within the top 5 running back rankings, has the highest likelihood of finishing as the number 1 overall running back this upcoming season? And the name that keeps coming to my mind and the thumbnail of today's episode is Tony Pollard. I truly do believe, amongst all running back prospects who have not been able to ever reach a top 5 overall standing, Tony Pollard has the highest likelihood based on the fact that there's no more Ezekiel Elliott in this offense. The Dallas Cowboys last season were number 3 amongst all teams in the National Football League in terms of total touchdowns scored, only behind the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. There is so much upside for Tony Pollard going into this upcoming season, and we'll mention him once again. Tony Pollard's the guy that I believe can finish as the RB1 at the end of 2023. Now, another overall name that we want to bring up is David Montgomery. And the category that he sits within is running backs outside of the top 24 in terms of ADP who can potentially finish as an RB1. At this current moment in time, of course, we all know that Jahmyr Gibbs, someone that I named yesterday in terms of a potential league-winning running back, is going to be in the mix within this backfield, a top 12 selection in the 2023 NFL draft. But the fact of the matter is, David Montgomery's coming in to fill into the Jamal Williams role. Jamal Williams with 259 rushing attempts, over 1,000 rushing yards, 17 rushing touchdowns last season, had himself a sprinkle of receiving yards. But what David Montgomery provides is so much more than what Jamal Williams was able to present. I mean, Jamal Williams, yes, he was able to be the number 8 overall fantasy running back in a half PPR scoring format, but he was highly inefficient. And what David Montgomery is going to go ahead and do with those overall opportunities, whether it's on the ground and through the air, because we know he's a capable receiving back. This is a running back that is finished among the top 4 back in 2020. He has shown us high levels of production, and now he's behind an incredible offensive line in a scheme and in an offense that is going to be very successful this season. I think of all the players that are outside the top 24 overall ADP at the running back position, David Montgomery could very easily finish as an RB1, and we wouldn't be surprised if in fact he did so. Now let's move on to the next category. Let's talk about Garrett Wilson, another one of these players that I have mentioned as potential league-winning players going into 2023. The category sits as which wide receiver that is not named Justin Jefferson can finish as the number 1 overall wide receiver while also never being a top 5 fantasy wide receiver. So, players like Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, they wouldn't be able to fill into this category. So if we're looking for a name, I believe it is Garrett Wilson. Now, I thought about bringing up Amon-Ra St. Brown, but Amon-Ra St. Brown playing from the slot position and his overall yards per reception is going to have to be significantly higher if he wants to compete with someone like Garrett Wilson. So amongst all receivers who've never been in the top 5, and could potentially finish as the number 1 overall wide receiver by the end of this upcoming season, I think Garrett Wilson is definitely in that conversation. Now, is it a very high likelihood that he can accomplish this? Probably not, but Aaron Rodgers can absolutely help him get into that overall top 3 upside based on what we've been able to see, not only from just Garrett Wilson's skill, but what Aaron Rodgers is able to develop out of wide receivers over the course of his entire career. We've talked about it already this offseason. Number 1 wide receivers over the course of the last 5 healthy seasons with Aaron Rodgers that have been elite players, whether it's a Jordy Nelson or Devontae Adams, they are putting up unbelievable numbers. And therefore, Garrett Wilson should be the next line of wide receiver in that category. Now, the next category we want to bring up is similar to the running back conversation in regards to which wide receiver currently outside of the top 24 ADP has the potential of being a top 12 wide receiver by the end of 2023. And I believe that is Deontay Johnson. You guys have heard me talk about Deontay Johnson a bunch this season, and it's not by accident. Opportunity leads to success in fantasy football, and this is a wide receiver for the 4th consecutive year. I'm predicting he's going to be able to surpass over 140 targets. And when you're given that level of opportunity and the quarterback play continues to rise, and this offense, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who quite literally only had 12 passing touchdowns last season, elevates their game and perhaps doubles it, maybe even gets even more than that, there's going to be a conversation in which Deontay Johnson can absolutely be a wide receiver 1, because quite frankly, similar to David Montgomery, he has proven it in the past to have found success. Yes, it was with Big Ben, but I truly do believe Kenny Pickett will be taking major steps forward in 2023. Now, the next 2 overall categories we want to talk about, of course, very similar to a David Montgomery, Deontay Johnson. We're talking about quarterbacks and tight ends that are currently outside of the top 20 ADP of their current position, who have the potential of finishing as a tight end 1 or a QB 1. And these players are Hayden Hurst of the Carolina Panthers. Of course, this offseason signed with the organization, is joining Frank Reich in the entire organizational shift within that overall offense. We have a new starting quarterback, of course, with Bryce Young, the number 1 overall pick of the 2023 NFL draft. What we have witnessed from Frank Reich over the course of his career as a head coach and primary play caller, we talk about 2018 through 2021 Indianapolis Colts. They utilized their tight ends a bunch, regardless of whether it was a guy like Eric Ebron, Mo Alley Cox, Jack Doyle. It did not matter. They were continuing to use this position and will once again do it this upcoming season. There are other players like an Ian Thomas or Tommy Tremble within this offense at the tight end position, but they are certainly not as talented as Hayden Hurst. I wouldn't be surprised, out of all players outside of the top 20 of the tight end position, he could finish as a tight end 1, because he's done it before in the past with the Atlanta Falcons just a couple years back. Now, in regards to Brock Purdy, a lot of people sleep on the potential of Brock Purdy. I truly think that that's the case. I mean, you go back to last season, as soon as he took over that Miami game when Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, for the remainder of the regular season, every single game consisted of 2 or more touchdowns. Brock Purdy can get it done on the ground, through the air, and even though he's not going to be someone that's on the ground gathering 45 rushing yards, he's capable of doing it. And in those overall scramble scenarios near the red zone, it doesn't have to always go to a Christian McCaffrey. There could always be a bootleg that allows Brock Purdy to continue to extend and expand upon his overall fantasy upside, which, like he proved last season at the back end of the year, when he was a starting quarterback in the National Football League, he can rank within the top 12 of the quarterback position on a consistent basis, and that is exactly what he did. And even in the playoffs against the Seattle Seahawks, a 4-touchdown game, there is so much upside with Brock Purdy because of the offensive pieces that surround him, which is only going to elevate his overall production. Okay, now before I go ahead and move on to more bold predictions for the 2023 fantasy football season, I want to remind you guys, if you have not yet already, while you're down in the comment section, of course, leaving your overall bold predictions for the 2023 season, of course, subscribing to the channel. For those of you who want additional content for this upcoming season, again, the final chance to potentially get my 2023 fantasy football draft guide is via Underdog Fantasy. Travel down to the description, click on the link. When you use code ANGE today and make a first-time deposit minimum of $10, not only are you going to get the first-time deposit match, you're additionally going to get my 2023 fantasy football draft guide and rankings. You're also going to get weekly rankings every single Sunday morning from my email to yours, so be sure to check your spam folder with individual rankings, week 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to week 18. Half PPR, full PPR, by position, by tier, for the singular purpose of trying to help you guys win a fantasy football championship. So take advantage of the opportunity today. Get your hands on my 2023 fantasy football draft guide, those rankings, so that you can go ahead and find success on draft night, whether it is tonight or potentially this upcoming week prior to the Thursday night kickoff between the Kansas City Chiefs. So for those of you who are interested, of course, the eligibility is based on your current location, so check out the map to the right side of the screen. Be sure to draft responsibly and, of course, gain some experience via Underdog Fantasy. And take advantage of the opportunity today. Help me help you. Thank you very much. All right, let's get into talking about some more bold predictions. And I bring up Bijan Robinson to say, amongst all running backs that I believe has a potential to be the rushing leader this upcoming season, I think Bijan Robinson is the running back that I'm going to hang my hat on. Even though in the last couple seasons, I've purely just said Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, and that is it. And I keep going back and forth, and I'm always wrong. And in the last couple seasons, it's still been guys like Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor. Derrick Henry was in that conversation back in 2020 when he went for 2,000 yards, but typically I've been wrong in this overall category. So I wanted to go outside of the box. I didn't want to go after one of the main guys that have been able to accumulate 1,600 rushing yards over the last couple seasons. I'm going with Bijan Robinson. I think the rookie running back immediately makes an impact as he joins the Atlanta Falcons, one of the best rushing attacks in the National Football League. And amongst all teams in the National Football League last year, they had the second most running back rushing attempts and the most running back rushing yards as an entire backfield. I think if they continue to attribute a lot of those opportunities in the direction of this young running back, the 8th overall pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, Bijan Robinson could run away with the rushing title in 2023. Let's move on. Let's talk about the next category in regards to which wide receiver can have the most receiving yards. And this one's very special because I'm going with Jalen Waddle. Even though, the expectation is that Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase will be able to win the receiving title per se, the most receiving yards by the end of the year. When we look at the efficiency of Jalen Waddle, last year had an 18.1 yard per reception average. Jalen Waddle can very easily, if in fact he can stay healthy, and so does Tua Tagovailoa, I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Waddle has the most receiving yards on his own team this season and is able to take that year 3 step and overshadow Tyreek Hill in that category. Now, this is a very bold prediction, I understand, but that's one that I'm going to make and I'm going to stand on. I think Jalen Waddle has it as a bold prediction going into 2023. If he can stay healthy and so can Tua Tagovailoa and the targets continue to go in his direction, he leads the NFL in receiving yards. All right, moving on to the next category. One that, again, has to do with the most of a specific statistic. We're going with most passing yards at the end of the season. And the reason why I believe Jalen Waddle is going to be able to accomplish this number is, of course, Tua Tagovailoa. Again, they're contingent on one another staying healthy. But I think Tua Tagovailoa, again, based on the 10 healthy games he played last season, he was averaging 297 passing yards per game in those 10 healthy games. On a 17-game basis, that's over 5,000 passing yards. I'm not saying 1,000% Tua Tagovailoa is going to be able to accomplish that, but as a bold prediction, I think Tua Tagovailoa at the end of the 2023 season leads the National Football League in passing yardage overall. Pretty bold prediction, but we'll go with it. Now, in terms of other statistics besides yardage, let's talk about touchdowns. Which running back is going to lead the National Football League? Not just in rushing touchdowns, not just in receiving touchdowns, just overall touchdowns. Which running back is going to lead the position? Because we've seen guys like Jonathan Taylor in the last couple of years, of course, Austin Eckler being able to put up 20 plus touchdowns in a given year. I think this year, the reason why I believe Tony Pollard can be that RB1 by the end of the season, because I believe he has a chance of finishing this season having scored the most touchdowns amongst all running back options going into this year, rushing, receiving, with no more Ezekiel Elliott in this backfield, a guy that had 9 rushing touchdowns inside the 5-yard line. I mean, unless they're going to give it to Deuce Vaughn or Rico Dowdle, I mean, that's probably very unlikely. Those rushing attempts are going in the direction of Tony Pollard, and we know that this organization, especially after Dak Prescott injured that ankle a couple years back, they really don't utilize him in a rushing sense down on the goal line. Tony Pollard will lead the running back position and perhaps the entire National Football League in terms of flex options, whether it's a running back, wide receiver, or a tight end, in total touchdowns scored this season. Now, let's talk about the wide receiver position. And even though you may think, Andrew, it should be another player like maybe an A.J. Brown or a Devontae Adams who could lead the receiving position in terms of total receiving touchdowns, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown has a potential, and my bold prediction is that he finishes 2023 with the most receiving touchdowns amongst all wide receivers at the position. And even though he's not able to get it done in terms of receiving yardage and has the potential of almost capturing the Triple Crown because his overall reception number and his receiving touchdown numbers are going to be relatively high, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be the number one threat of this offense down in the red zone. And even though defenses are aware of how great Amon-Ra St. Brown is, it's still going to be difficult to stop him. Like I mentioned all offseason, Jared Goff last season amongst all quarterbacks in terms of passing touchdowns inside the 10-yard line was only behind Patrick Mahomes in touchdown completions. He had 20 passing touchdowns, Jared Goff did, inside the 10-yard line. If a lot more of those go in the direction of Amon-Ra St. Brown like I'm expecting, he should very easily lead the wide receiver position in total receiving touchdowns. So let's move on to the final category in terms of quarterback passing touchdowns. Which quarterback is going to lead the league? Again, last season was Patrick Mahomes, but this year I think there's a chance that we could see flashes of the old Lamar Jackson with Todd Monken going into the organization, with Odell Beckham Jr., with the absolute monster that is Zay Flowers, who has been turning heads in training camp. I think Lamar Jackson gets back to being into that top conversation as he stays healthy and he dominates from the pocket this season. I predict that Lamar Jackson is going to lead the quarterback position in total passing touchdowns. Again, he did it back in 2019. He's capable of doing it. And I think it just needs this offensive shift from Greg Roman to Todd Monken to unlock what Lamar is truly capable of doing in the passing game. Now, before I get into the final 3 categories, I wanted to mention another thing I want to remind you guys. If you guys haven't checked out the 1.01 brand, the official merchandise line of the Andrew Kiorkof YouTube channel, be sure to travel down to the description of the video. And of course, check out AndrewKiorkofShop.com. As you guys can currently see on screen, I'm currently wearing one of the variations in terms of the silver text embroidery on my chest in regards to the tie-dye hoodies. Again, these tie-dye hoodies are in limited capacity. So if you have not yet already, be sure to go ahead and get them today. It says greetings and salutations, fantasy football, and Andrew Kiorkof. So if you want to go ahead and support the channel and of course rep greetings and salutations, be greatly appreciated. Check out the link down in the description. Again, like I've mentioned in the past, the entire purpose of this merchandise line is to provide high quality, comfortable, and stylish clothing for your most stressful of upcoming fantasy football Sundays. So be sure to check it out today. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. All right, let's get into talking about the final 3 bold predictions of today's episode. We begin with Keenan Allen and the Los Angeles Chargers. So here's the thing. I believe Keenan Allen is going to be this season's comeback fantasy player of the year. Keenan Allen in the last 3 seasons with Justin Herbert has been averaging over 14 fantasy points per game in a half PPR scoring format. In a full PPR scoring format, Keenan Allen can be a wide receiver 1, absolutely without a doubt in my mind. As long as he stays healthy, despite his age of 31, with Kellen Moore going into this offense and how he was able to utilize CeeDee Lamb last season, I think Keenan Allen, the veteran wide receiver, one of the favorite targets of, if not the favorite target of Justin Herbert going into this upcoming season. I think Keenan Allen makes a huge impact and is the comeback fantasy player of the year after, of course, missing a lot of time due to injury last season. Now, when we move on, I want to mention who I believe is going to be the fantasy football MVP at the end of the 2023 season. This is someone that you guys have seen me draft a lot and pay a lot of attention to. It is going to be Justin Fields of the Chicago Bears. A lot of people have said Justin Fields can be the Jalen Hurts of this upcoming season. I don't need him to be the Jalen Hurts of this upcoming season. I need him to be the Justin Fields of this upcoming season. Purely be a running quarterback who can accumulate over 1,200 rushing yards, get himself all of the rushing work in terms of potential red zone upside, at least 5, 6, 7 rushing touchdowns, along with what he was able to do through the air. Despite the fact that this offense was a complete mess last season, Justin Fields was able to produce incredible numbers from weeks 5 through 17. Of course, was averaging over 23.5 fantasy points per game. If and when we get back to that overall level of production, Justin Fields may be able to contest players like Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Patrick Mahomes for that top quarterback spot. And based on where he's being drafted, could very easily be the fantasy MVP based on his overall production. Now let's get into the final category of today's episode called Sleeper of the Year. Again, we have done this episode, bold predictions, since 2019. And in 2019, my bold prediction in terms of Sleeper of the Year was Jarvis Landry. In 2020, Keenan Allen. In 2021, Cooper Kupp. Last season, Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju pretty much was the biggest letdown of all 3. Cooper Kupp finished as a number 1 wide receiver in that given year as my Sleeper of the Year. Keenan Allen, if I'm not mistaken, was wide receiver 14 despite being drafted outside of the top 25 because many people were worried about Tyrod Taylor. We got lucky that, of course, Justin Herbert took over. And then Jarvis Landry back in going from 2018 to 2019, they thought, oh, okay, the impending doom of Odell Beckham Jr. joining this offense is going to hurt someone like Jarvis Landry. He still was able to finish as a top 20 overall wide receiver despite being selected outside of the top 35. So going into this upcoming year, I truly do believe that the sleeper of the season, another slot wide receiver for this season, is going to be Chris Godwin. I truly do believe Baker Mayfield and this offense is going to look eerily similar to potentially what we witnessed from the Seattle Seahawks last year. I think Chris Godwin's going to be the number 1 receiving option of this offense. Him and Baker Mayfield will be able to elevate their play. And Chris Godwin, despite the fact that this is an offense that last season threw the ball 700 times, you don't need them to throw the ball 700 times in order to be effective. You just need to sprinkle someone like Chris Godwin with 120 targets and have a total of 500 passing attempts, and you're going to find an incredible volume of value within his current ADP being at like wide receiver 26. Going into this upcoming year, Chris Godwin's my sleeper of the year. All right, thank you everybody for watching. Be sure to go down to the comment section and let me know your bold predictions based on these specific categories or potentially the categories that you've set out. Make some bold predictions. Until tomorrow, of course, we'll be talking about week 1 running back rankings. Thank you everybody for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.